would it be okay to take lip sync audio from shots like those but do different animations? Yeah, I I would try to avoid it if you can, especially if they're shots from like an Animation Mentor showcase or an iAnimate showcase or Anim School showcase, because those get shown to all the studios. So if you use the same dialogue that was used in a showcase of a school or something like that, it's gonna get your work compared. Is it a bad thing? No, but the key to a lot of good dialogue shot is avoiding comparison, and that's tricky. So the way we avoid comparison is, one, try to avoid dialogue from popular film. So things like Star Wars, Back to the Future, Indiana Jones, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, any popular media. Try to avoid clips from that. Try to find instead clips from more elusive content. So YouTube, podcasts, interviews from lesser known TV shows or movies. That can be better. Now, things like Game Grumps, Markiplier, like famous YouTubers, I would recommend avoiding those as well. In terms of demo reel shots, if you're doing a reanimated or like doing an animated project for them, yeah, that's fine, like no problem. But if it's a demo reel shot where it's like it's not related to the Game Grumps at all and you're just using those clips, or Markiplier or something like that, these really famous YouTubers, it goes with a popular TV show. It's going to be recognized. And the problem with that is it adds comparison. So for example, let's say I watch a clip from a shot and I hear a line from Star Wars. I love Star Wars. And the moment I hear that line, I'm going to go, oh, Star Wars. And I'm going to have all of these positive memories of Star Wars and what I loved about it and all of this stuff. And I'm going to look at the demo reel, and that demo reel is now going to be fighting with all of those positive memories that I have, of all of those good times, of all of that original scene, and how much I really loved Han Solo's acting in that scene. Or I should say Harrison Ford's acting. There's a comparison. And if I see that, oh, Harrison Ford did such a much better job in this than what I'm seeing in this scene, comparison. We don't want that. If you have a clip from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, oh man, that original scene was so funny. Again, as a recruiter, I'm looking at it, oh man, I loved that scene. And I see this clip and it's like, that didn't make me laugh as much as the original. Comparison, and it's negative. Now, sometimes you can get a positive comparison where it's like, oh, they did it way better than the original. That's very rare because the original has a whole movie or a whole TV show to build up the joke. You've literally got maybe 600 frames. So, no. Now, what if you take the audio clip and try to recreate it yourself? Unless you have a really good microphone to record it and can really act, no, don't try. And this is one of those things, you can record your own like if you're going to record your own lines, just record your own line, or take something from a book, for example, something that's never had a movie made out of it, and read a line from a book or something like that. That's going to be way better than just recreating a line from a film, because once again, if it's a popular line, people will recognize the source. Now, if you make fun of the line or you make a different take on it, so maybe it was a serious line and you make a joke out of it, that could work. But you want the good audio quality too. So only do that if you're really good at recording and acting the line of dialogue. So try to avoid that. Definitely avoid any audio clip from an animated source. So we talked about comparison before. If your clip comes from an animated source, this can be film, TV, even video games. Try to avoid that at all costs, because that is going to be a negative comparison most of the time. You're going to be competing with a scene that's not only a scene from a film, mostly popular because we're animators, so we've seen a lot of cartoons, but they're going to compare it to the original source and to the original animation, which most likely, especially if you're a student, will not match up. Your work is going to be less good than the original. So never take something from an animated content. What about funny audio from streams? I know funny streamers that get involved in funny stuff. Yes. So as long as it's not popular, and the same thing goes for movies and TV. So if you find a TV show or a film that no one's ever heard about, where there's no like classic lines, like for example, I know this isn't the original line, but Luke, I am your father. Like everyone knows that. What other famous line? They're taking the hobbits to Isengard. Like you take that line, everyone knows that line. But if you find a film that no one's ever heard about, yeah, use those clips. Nothing wrong with that. No one's gonna recognize it, and if they do, they're gonna like kind of be like, you'll go, oh wow, someone else watched that film. That's cool. So yeah, same thing with YouTube videos. If you find a YouTuber that has like a smaller following, or a streamer or whatever, definitely use it. Now, like on the flip side, again, if you go with someone like Markiplier, I think he has 22 million followers. If you look at Critical Role is huge. If you use any clips from them, it's gonna get recognized. So try to avoid that. As much as it's good lines, try if you can to avoid it. Now, with that said, if you do find a clip, as long as it's not from an animated source, if you do find a clip that you're just in love with, it's not always a bad thing to use it, but try, if you can, try to avoid it. Which also goes into, what was the next thing I wanted to say? Try to avoid it if it's huge. I just forgot the next thing I wanted to mention. Is it strange to not use English in your shot? No, you can definitely do a different language. Just keep in mind what studio you're applying for. So for example, if I'm applying to a studio in the States, it's most likely they're gonna be an English studio. If I have most of my reel with shots that are not in English, they're not gonna be able to tell how good my lip sync is, how good my dialogue is, because they're not gonna understand the clip. Even if you have subtitles, it's not gonna be quite the same. Doesn't mean that you can't have one, or like maybe I have a French, like I'm French, maybe I have a French shot on my reel. Is that bad? No, not at all. As long as it's not all French and I'm applying to an English studio. Same thing goes for, maybe I want to apply to a French studio. If I know that none of them speak English and it's just a pure French studio, I might want to make sure that I have a few French shots on there before I apply. So it really depends on where you're applying for. And it's not bad to have different languages, as long as you at least have some of the language of the studio. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's see. Yeah, streams. Yeah, so in terms of good places to get audio, while we're still on that, YouTube, Twitch, as long as they're smaller kind of places. Podcasts are good. Once again, if you don't go for the super popular podcasts, those can be really good areas to get content. And then just finding a lot of older film and TV shows. Watch out for laugh tracks. Anything that has a laugh track, avoid. It just ruins a reel. And then the other one is interviews. Find clips of interviews with an actor. So maybe you have an actor that you really like, but the film that they were in is too popular. Well, find some interviews of them talking about the film. You can find some really good clips of that actor doing the line or talking, but it's unique and not many people watch interviews, honestly. Now, there is movie sound clips. That's a great website, but keep in mind that most animators have already gone there and picked that site clean of all the best lines. So if you pick something from there, most likely someone else has already used it. Not a bad thing, just keep in mind, and usually it's very popular clips in there. You can find some hidden gems, but it can be tricky. Usually it's best to kind of do your own research if you can. And then one last note on dialogue is try to avoid clips from from highly recognizable people. So, for example, Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is very recognizable in his voice. Not only that, he did Woody in Toy Story, which means that you're going to be dealing with a very recognizable voice and also a very recognizable animated voice. Try to avoid him. Someone like Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey's voice, as soon as you hear it, you can recognize it. Try to avoid it. There's certain actors that their voices are just so recognizable that it's going to be hard to disassociate from the character versus the actor. PewDiePie, I would avoid him because, well, I think he's the biggest YouTuber right now. Biggest or second biggest YouTuber. So yeah, I would definitely try to stay away from him because people are going to recognize his voice. Bill Murray. Bill Murray has a pretty recognizable voice as well. So I would try to avoid him. What's another, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger, like that's a very recognizable voice. Try to avoid people that, like, you hear it, it's like, yeah, Morgan Freeman, that's another one where it's like, yeah, that you hear that Morgan Freeman, that's 100% him. And the hard part is he's got such a presence, Morgan Freeman, that it's hard to capture that on an animation, which you use his voice, you're going to get compared to all of his best performances. It's very difficult. So it's not that you can't, but again, it adds comparison. And the more comparison you have in your shot, the less your shot is judged by the merits of your animation, and then the more it's compared to what the original content was, which could be negative. It's not fair, honestly, but it's the way the human brain works. So we want to avoid that. Now, the 11-second club, it's good and bad. It's bad in the sense of using a clip from that just for your demo reel, because everyone else has used it. There's so many people who apply for the 11-second club that if you go, oh, I'll just search through the archives and pick a clip from there, a lot of people have used it already. But if you're using the 11-second club as a way to practice, as a way to, like, oh, I'm going to join this month and let's see how well I do. Take a clip and start animating that. That's a good way to just give you a project and a deadline. So it's very positive in that. And then once you have that, you can use it. After the fact, I wouldn't use the clips from there just because so many people have already done it. Can we use dialogue from big movies which has no big effect on story or aren't important? Yeah, it's hard because it's still going to be recognizable from that film. Unless it's like a side clip from a side character who just says one little line. Even if it's not like the big lines of dialogue, like for example, Star Wars. If I hear any line of dialogue from Star Wars, even if it's from a little side clip, I'll probably recognize it. Back to the Future, same thing. Like, they're just such big popular films that a lot of people will recognize pretty much any line from that film, even if it's not the big, like, why am I having so much trouble with my words today? The moments that everyone repeats or everyone kind of mimics. And Bellart, thanks so much for the follow. So yeah, domain free stuff, like look for clips. It's hard. It's very hard, but you can find if you find something that's really unique, it just makes your shot unique as well. So, yeah. Now, there was another question here that I think I missed. I heard Amphibia used a cameo from Lord of the Rings, the episode where it's famous. Yeah, yeah. So they use a lot of quotes like that, but keep in mind that is a whole film, and they're using it for a specific joke. With a demo reel, oftentimes we only have enough time to do one specific line, not enough time to build a whole joke around that line. So a recruiter will not get the benefit of the whole build up. They'll just get that one moment, which is a line that they've heard somewhere else, which is very tricky to do. Now, if you can build a whole joke around it, that's fine. And if you have a line of dialogue, let's say the Luke, I am your father line, super popular, I wouldn't want to use it from Star Wars. But if I have a recording of someone mimicking that line and making a joke out of it, that I could use. Because now the original source, they're saying that line, but they're adding something to it. And it's not the original dialogue. Now, if it was just someone mimicking it and making no change to it, I wouldn't use that, because then it's just the line with a different voice, which wouldn't be that great. So yeah, it's really just being aware of how recruiters will perceive it. And it's not so much just the recruiters, it's the way the human brain will perceive it. We don't want that unfair comparison, because it is unfair. It is unfair that you put so much work, and you might make, let's say we take a scene from, or a line from Star Wars, and we make this amazingly animated scene, and it's just beautiful, and it's cool, and it's awesome. It's unfair that all of that hard work is going to get compared and brought down potentially just because of the line of dialogue that got chosen. But that's how our brain works. So we have to be aware of that and work around that to try and avoid that unfair comparison. So problem with podcasts are they sometimes don't speak dialogue with expression as we want. Yeah, so this is where you just have to find the right kind of podcasts. There's so many nowadays. Like, look for story podcasts where it's not just a podcast where they're talking and interviewing each other, but maybe a podcast where it's an actual story. So for example, I wouldn't use this because it's so popular, but what was it? Why can't I think of it? I have the comic book. What's it called? It's the McElroys. Not Adventure Time. It's McElroys. Why can't I think of Adventure Zone? That's it. Yeah, the Adventure Zone. That's a podcast where people play D&D and they're telling a story. There's a lot of wonderful voice acting moments in there because they're actually acting. Now, I wouldn't use that for your demo reel because, again, it's super popular, but something like that. There's a lot of podcasts like that, little no-name ones that no one's ever heard of because, unfortunately, they didn't get popular. So you just find those. Now, can I suggest some podcasts? I don't really listen to podcasts, unfortunately. I don't have time. So I don't have any on hand. But just do some searching for like adventure podcasts or story podcasts, things like that. And you'll be surprised how many you can find. And there's all sorts of different websites.